Now that you finished your assembling, you can see mine is completed here on screen, and you look over here in the browser and you can see all of my constraints that I added to make sure that this is finished. Once that is finished, we're going to go ahead and create a presentation file. And you'll actually have to create two of them. One will be a basic presentation, and then one will be a more advanced complex presentation we'll use for animation purposes. The first basic presentation is going to be used as an exploded view, which we'll talk more about later. But you'll put that into an IDW file, and that'll be one of the things you print for your project. In order to create a new presentation file, we'll go to the iPro button, and we can go to New and Presentation. We could also go up to this Quick Access toolbar and click on the drop down and do a presentation from there. Or we could go to New, click on New, and then if you come into this template window, you can scroll to the bottom and there's a new standard IPN. We're going to double click on that and open a new presentation file. The first thing you're going to do is import your finished assembly. So if you go to Create View and click on the folder with the magnifying glass on it and navigate to wherever your assembly is. I have two on here because I had one before we completed the last video. So I'm going to select my first one and I'm going to hit OK, or Open rather, and I'm going to hit OK. And that now brings my assembly file into my presentation. Once I have this imported, I'm going to go over to my browser, and you can see I have explosion number 1 over here. And I'm going to click the plus button next to that. That'll show me my assembly. And then I'm going to click the plus button again, and that gives me all my individual cubes. Now the next thing I'm going to do in order to create this exploded view is I'm going to use what's called Tweak Components. So up here there's a Tweak Components button. And then also if you right click, there's a Tweak Components button here. And also to create a view, if you wanted to import, you could have right clicked and selected Create View here as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is select Tweak Component, and it'll bring up this menu over here, which you can use this top left bar here and click and hold to drag around. I like to drag it up here into the top left corner, make it easier to work with. And then you'll see that with my cursor is a set of axes. Now what these axes allow me to do is assign X, Y, and Z axis to this model, and then allow me to move my parts and bring them out of the assembly based on those axes that I select. So if I take a look around my cube, I want to look for a puzzle piece that would naturally slide out without being without running into another piece. So like this red piece, I know I have these 5 cubes here and then this 1 cube coming down. So if this were to slide out here this way to the right, it would be able to slide straight out without running into any other pieces. So I'm going to move my red piece first, and I'm going to click on this face of the red piece to assign my axes, and you can see that I have axes there, and it's automatically going to select that part. You can see that it's selected over here in red. So now that I have that axis on there, it's going to allow me to move it. Now you'll notice that this axis pointing out here, which if you look down here is your Z axis, down here left hand corner has your origin axis. You'll notice that this one's highlighted yellow, and it gives me a input window here to input a distance. You'll also notice up here that I have continuous move selected, so I can move or make multiple moves on this piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and click or type in 2 inches. First you got to click in the window here. Type in 2 inches. It's default inches, so you don't have to put the inches symbol in, and then I'm going to hit enter. And that's going to move that piece out 2 inches. And then I'm going to hit the check mark up here in my Tweak Components, and that'll finish that move for that piece. I'm going to select Tweak Components again, and then I'm going to go select the next part I want to move, and I think the next one I want to move is this green one, and I'm going to move it directly out here to the left. So I'm going to click on the top here, and what you'll notice is it's wanting to move it directly up. If I come over here and click on this other axis, that's going to allow me to move it to the left. And once again, I'm going to select 2 inches and hit enter. And I'm going to hit the check mark. I'm going to use Tweak Component again. I'm going to zoom out a bit and then kind of rotate around to find the part that I want to move next. And what the goal here is to make an exploded view so that I can see all of my 5 pieces exploded away from the assembly, and then have a nice gap in between them so I can see them all nicely. The next one I'm going to move, I think, is this orange piece. I'm going to click on the top, and I do want to move that straight up in the air. And I'm going to try 2 inches and hit enter. And I think I want to move that a little bit more. So I'm actually going to type 1 more inch. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually need to type 3 inches. Get a total of 3 inches there. And then I'm going to hit the check mark. And I'm going to select tweak component again. I want to move this purple one, and I want to move it on this axis here, but I want to move it to the left, and it's pointing to the right. So instead of putting a positive number, I'm just going to put a negative. Let's try -2. See how that looks. That's a bit much, so I'm going to change that to -1. And that'll work for now. And I'm going to go ahead and move my box over here. I'm going to hit the check mark, select tweak component, and then I'm going to move this blue one as well. But I want to move it down, so I need to select this axis, and then my input value is once again going to be negative. So I'm going to select -1 and try that. See what that looks like. That looks all right. Check, and I'm going to play with this a little bit here and try to get it so that basically I could see all these pieces and there's a nice gap in between them. So I'm going to use the tweak component here on this red one, and I'm going to move this one up. Let's see, +1 inch. See what that looks like. Actually, I'm going to change that to 2 instead. So now I got a nice gap in between these parts, and I'm going to hit the check mark. And then I'm going to move this green one, but I want to move it out this way a little bit, so I'm going to try 0.5 inches and see what that looks like. That'll be decent. And I'm going to hit check. And then the last one, I want to move this purple one down a little bit. So I'm going to select that edge, but I want to select this axis, and I want to move it down, so I'm going to need to use a negative value, so I'm going to use -0.5, see what that looks like. And that looks pretty good, but then it's touching this blue one, so my last tweak I'm going to make is to take this part, and I'm going to move it out this way, and I'm going to say 0.25 because it doesn't need to move much. And that looks great. I hit the check mark, and now I have an exploded view of my cube, and I have a gap in between all of my components, so that now I can import this into a drawing, and then I can see a complete exploded view of my part.